three major topics in the algorithm today. And that's the Nick Fuentes and Sneako debate. What does America first really mean? Then we're also going to be talking about, obviously, a little bit of the Iran war. For about 15 minutes or so, I'll cover that, some new articles, how we're about to go to war again with Iran, essentially, back to war, MOU, essentially over. And then the Charlie Kirk assassination mystery. We're being told a lot of different stories about the Charlie Kirk assassination and what really happened. And as a police officer, I wanted to break down some of the videos I've seen and it's just my opinion on the matter, just being a cop myself, and a lot of inconsistencies in what we've been seeing. And I think a lot of the bigger voices in the media might be basically hiding from a lot of these facts, not because they don't know, but because it's quite a touchy subject. And really, I think a lot of these same media people are in danger, those including some of the biggest names that you might know. You may not like them, you may love them, whatever. Point is, they're on the lists, you could say. And these voices would be like Nick Fuentes, Alex Jones, a lot of the far right. A lot of different personalities believe that Tyler Robinson was the legitimate killer of Charlie Kirk, and I think that just might not be true. Candace Owens has been questioning the matter, Ian Carroll, some of these other voices. They've been getting a lot of slack for it, and at the end of the day, I think that it's very plausible that it could be very possible that maybe somebody else was behind it. And when I say somebody else, maybe a certain player that, you know, we're not supposed to say. Maybe that player might be just be Israel. And the reason people think it's Israel is not because everybody's anti-Semitic, but more because there's just so many inconsistencies, and because it looks a lot like what we've seen with a lot of the past. And given our current timeline and the things that Charlie Kirk was talking about just days before his death, it leads us to question, what is the truth here? What is the real reality behind who's behind all of this, right? Again, Charlie Kirk turning down $150 million just days before his assassination, and then the text messages that were released from Candace Owens between him and Candace, essentially, where Charlie Kirk was even saying the Israel lobby is essentially after him, in his own words. And also, again, we also have things that he was saying on the Ben Shapiro show, or the Daily Wire, I guess you could say. And again, things that just might lead to the possibility that Israel was behind it. Charlie Kirk admitting that his own security team, where it did consist of former IDF guys, and then, of course, former Navy SEALs. And then when we look at the security footage, we see a lot of these the Navy SEAL who's standing right behind him. He's standing in ready position, and he gives the signal, touches his arm, and then the other guy in the white polo shirt and the cap touches his hat. And then right after the assassination, we have the strange thing where essentially the entire crime scene is basically wiped within minutes. Now, the court that has been playing out over the past couple days has said that, oh, well, they cleared it within hours. Well, it was in days, but I think it was cleared within hours. And really, you could say minutes, because moments after Charlie Kirk's death, the body was taken away to another vehicle. And on top of that, we had again, cameras that were in the same tent being completely wiped over. And then within the next few days, we had literally about 10 inches of the dirt or the grass that Charlie Kirk was killed on, basically dug right out of the ground. All of these things, we're going to look at that. And then I also wanted to, again, before we even get into the Charlie Kirk stuff, again, we'll probably cover that within 45 minutes or so. I wanted to cover the Nick Fuentes and Sneako and what's really going on with that. What does America first mean? Because Sneako recently comes out and he says he's in New York, he's watching the World Cup game, and some team won. I don't know. I don't really follow the World Cup. And essentially, what does Sneako say? He says, Allahu Akbar, something to this extent. Allahu Akbar, this is New Yorkistan, and every state is going to be Muslim in America. Islam will be in every household. Now, a lot of people heard this as a very, very pro-Muslim statement. And the reason Nick Fuentes struck back at this and said, well, then go there. You know, you can go to these countries that you love so much. If you don't love America, if you want to bring Sharia law into the United States, then you might just be an enemy of the United States. And I honestly agree with that. That's my stance. I think that you should have allegiance to the United States of America, the very country that gives you freedom as an immigrant, whether you're illegal here or not, which we so happen to allow you to live here even when you're illegal, believe it or not. Even though ICE is doing their job and doing a great job at it, we have the 14th Amendment, which allows unlawful Americans to have children in America, and those children will be naturalized American citizens. So I wanted to talk about that issue. Again, Nick Fuentes went on the Alex Jones show today, and I thought that was a pretty good talk. At the same time, Alex Jones, right after that, ended up going on Sneako's show, which was quite entertaining. But ultimately, a lot of questions being risen about Sneako. Who is the Sneako guy? Well, he's a live streamer, just like Nick Fuentes. A lot of these live streamers are really big, right? Very popular. Some people like these people, some people don't. Everybody's got their opinions on them. The reason I think it's so important to cover is because they have a very large following. And I think a lot of people are following them. I think everybody knows that. You might watch them, you might not watch them, but you should pay attention to what they're saying. All of these people, Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes, Sneako, of course, and then you also have these other media personalities who are asking good questions relating to the Charlie Kirk case today. So all of these things are circulating in the algorithm. Three big topics. Again, the United States potentially going to war with Iran again. And then you also have, again, the Nick Fuentes and Sneako debate still happening, conversations circulating around that. People are not happy that Sneako is basically selling out America, saying America's so bad, and all the problems of the West are because of what the West is today. I disagree. I think the problems of the West today were created by mass immigration and letting in so many immigrants that now they're taking over, and they're bringing the customs from their old country and they're bringing them here. And our founding fathers, all of these guys, again, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, all of these people essentially predicted that this would happen. And they said that, again, these are all Anglo-Saxon British men. Then you had, again, a lot of the founding fathers who were Scottish, a lot of them were Irish, and then a lot of them at that time, a few of them actually were German. And then that was pretty much mostly what consisted of our founding fathers. And we actually, ironically, we did not have a lot of Jews in our country at that time. And so this is another debate, right? The Israeli occupation of the United States of America through the National Defense Authorization Act, H.R. 8800, Section 218, which allows the United States military and the Israeli military essentially to combine as one military, one fused military, which would give the Israelis, and we've never done this before in history, all of this control over our technology, classified information, very dangerous stuff in terms of national security, things that you ought to care about. And again, when we have this debate of other countries who are coming in with different religions like Islam, or whether it be Judaism, both of these religions do not agree with this religion, Jesus Christ, the Christian religion that this country was founded on. And maybe not Christian Zionism, but Christianity, Catholicism, you could call it. And so I want to bring that back. That's kind of my stance on the issue. I believe Nick Fuentes is correct here. Again, I don't believe we should deport Sneako for his freedom of speech, but at the same time, Sharia law does not allow for freedom of speech. So if you call for Sharia law to exist in the United States, well, what that would create is effectively the end of free speech. If you allowed a Muslim president, for example, that president eventually would essentially take away the freedom of speech because it is a part of the Sharia law, and anybody who doesn't abide by Sharia law would be punished. And that is very true. That's in the Quran. So I don't say this as a racist. I say this as an analyst. And again, I study a lot of what's happening in the wars, military, all these things. So again, we're going to cover it, all the different videos. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts. Who do you think is right? What do you think America means? What does America mean to you? What was it like for you growing up in the United States, right? You think about these things. We ask these questions. What does America mean to you? Are you more of a liberal-minded person where you think all of the problems today are created because of the way we've done things for hundreds of years? Do you call our founding fathers just a bunch of Freemasons and Satan worshipers and some horrible things, which are not true? They were Freemasons, yes, but Freemasonry was a much different thing than it is today. Freemasonry in many ways has been subverted. And again, all of these men here were Christians first. And so, again, by the way, the Knights Templar, you see a lot of people on Twitter or anywhere, they promote the Knights Templar. Well, guess what? In order to be a Knights Templar, you have to essentially be a Freemason. You have to be inducted into Freemasonry and all of these things. And then you have the right of choosing the Scottish Rite, the York. You can become a Shriner. You can become the Yorkshires, or you can become essentially a Knights Templar. Many different sects, right? You could be a Jesuit. This is where these things come from, is Freemasonry. Bilderberg, all of these different organizations and stems of Freemasonry. Donald Trump is a Freemason, by the way, if you didn't know that. He's a 33rd degree Scottish Freemason, Scottish Rite Freemason. I'm not a Freemason, but I know a lot about it. I've studied it, And over the years, I've realized that the Freemasonry thing isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. It just has more of a focus on today's version of Freemasonry. At the highest degrees, focuses heavily on Luciferianism. And that doesn't mean Satan worship necessarily, but it means essentially worshiping anything but one God, almost like a polytheism, almost like deists, and kind of that sort of thing. And so, again, we're going to cover all of these different things, but really, again, we're going to focus on the U.S.-Iran war, going to focus on the Nick Fuentes Sneako debates and what's kind of going on with those clips, and then I wanted to focus on what's really happening with the Charlie Kirk mystery. A lot of videos coming out today. So these are the three big topics. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about everything? So again, let's get into it. So again, I'm excited to cover this because I think it's rather important stuff. Okay, so before we get into the Nick Fuentes and Sneako stuff, I wanted to cover a lot of this Iran war, all of the proposed talks that are saying, essentially the United States forces carry out additional strikes on Iran, and how this is potentially going to be what we see next. U.S. Military Central Command, CENTCOM, says its forces have started conducting additional strikes against Iran to further degrade their ability to threaten freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian media is reporting air defense has been activated after explosions were reported in 2 locations in southern Iran. 41 minutes ago, Al Jazeera put out, Trump is trying to contain strikes to maintain political support. The majority of polls tend to show that the majority of Americans are not in favor of the prolonged conflict. I'm also not in favor of the prolonged conflict. I think it does not benefit us to destroy Iran. We really shouldn't be focused on Iran, in my opinion. I think we really need to focus on actually the Western Hemisphere. I'm not really an enemy of the idea of taking Cuba, personally, a communist country, where Hassan Piker supports these things. And again, Sneako supports, these countries just having their sovereignty, but they don't have sovereignty. They have a communist country. And then Venezuela, right? If America could control Venezuela, we would control a lot of that oil supply. And some people say, well, that doesn't matter. Well, the United States at this current time is running low on oil reserves, and that was a big problem. That's why we're potentially going to war again with Iran. But the issue is, how can we really control the Iranians, right? This is Persia you're talking about. Even Charlie Kirk had made a statement that if you go against Persia, it's going to be a bad idea. So we have a lot of propaganda trying to get us into the idea of stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon, even though Israel has 200 nuclear warheads and we're not allowed to know anything about it. Jonathan Pollard, who sold our nuclear secrets to the Russians and many of our other enemies like China, and nobody talks about that. So, again, my position on the matter is, if we can't control Israel, why would we ever be able to control Iran, a country of 90 million people? Israel has 10 million people, just about 9 million, 10 million people, and Iran has about 90 million people. Not really strategically the smartest war we could fight, and everything in Iran is underground. The Iranians were trolling the United States military. They were spray painting fighter jets on the dirt just at the beginning of the war. Now today, obviously, the United States hit Iran last night with over 80 different strikes, and we took out a lot of different vessels. It was a very successful attack on communication systems and air control, all these different things. And so the United States right now is striking Iran, and potentially we're going to strike them again tonight. Now, how has this really affected the oil prices? Again, oil actually went up a little bit because of all of this. And again, every time we strike Iran, the oil prices are going to go up. Okay, so we're already heading back up. We were at about $70 for the past week, $74.50 today. Brent crude at $78.02, Merben crude at $73.57, and natural gas at $3.21, right? So that's pretty much where the oil market is right now. And then when I look at a lot of this, I see the developments with all of these other stories, right? U.S. military launches second night of strikes against Iran. The U.S. military launched another round of strikes against Iran Wednesday night, U.S. Central Command said, in the second night of attacks as diplomacy between the two countries appears to collapse. So what does that mean? The memorandum of understanding is essentially over, and we're going back to war. Okay, so that's really what this means. So this 60-day peace deal period, which was supposed to take place with negotiations, possibly maybe that's still in effect. Maybe if the Iranians are not willing to, if they really can't fight back, which I believe they can absolutely afford all of the military capacity to do this, FPV drones, that's really all they have to do to effectively fight back. And again, We also have the Iranians pretty committed to defending Lebanon right now, southern Lebanon from the Israelis, which is another part of the MOU, is that the Israelis would have to end the war. They're not ending the war. And so all of this is basically leading to the fact that this war will continue, and oil prices will likely continue to go up. And, maybe the statements by Trump can temporarily keep the prices where they are at with oil, but ultimately we see the oil prices going up. I see the oil prices going well over $100 soon enough here if we continue this Iran war. If for some reason the MOU can continue, and if J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio turn their tides, Lindsey Graham's, all of the hawks out here for war who continue pushing it, if they were to change their mind and if they really do succeed in diplomacy, if for some reason we actually gain some kind of leverage over the Iranians, then maybe we can win. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, it doesn't look like the Iranians are really backing down. They did shoot back at us after last night's strikes in Kuwait. We had sirens going off in Kuwait. We had a few different missiles that had gone off in Kuwait last night in retaliation of the Iranians following the U.S. strikes on Qasem Island, Sarik, and Fuentes. But there will be more strikes. Some on X that Wednesday to further degrade Iran's ability to fight. The strikes were ordered by Iran's oil tankers earlier this week. CENTCOM has not offered any details on the extent of this. Iran state reported that the tourism city of Bandar hours earlier, Mr. Trump vowed to hit Iran hard again tonight. Asked about the 3-month ceasefire between two countries, which has repeatedly been mired by on and off fighting, he told reporters, as far as I'm concerned, it's over. And so Trump had said the MOU is over. I posted this on my YouTube channel, on my Instagram, Brendan Ecker Official. Go and follow it. I try to make clips of the war, try to follow it as much as I can. Kind of low on storage at the moment, so I've been a little bit slower to post. But yeah, follow me on those social media platforms. Look at the YouTube shorts. We're following all of this. And so again, Trump said that the MOU, he thinks it's over. And he doesn't think, he pretty much knows. We're going to be continuing with Iran. And after Wednesday's strikes began, Mr. Trump's so much worse Iran at more weeks back and back. This week's back and forth began with Iranian attacks on 3 oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz on Monday and Tuesday. The Trump has dozen targets inside Iran and Tuesday, and sending a sanctions waiver that allowed Iran to sell its oil abroad. Iran fired 10 missiles at U.S. allied Kuwait and Bahrain. Latest round of fighting could endanger already tenuous peace negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. The two sides signed a memorandum of understanding last month to extend their ceasefire by 60 days, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and a U.S. blockade on Iranian ports, and begin easing sanctions on Iran. The two countries also agreed to hold 2 months of further talks to tackle thorny issues like the fate of Iran's nuclear program. So the Iran war essentially is continuing. We're back at war. Effectively, you can pretty much consider that a fact. You can pretty much consider us back at war, and all of it continues on and on. So again, I wouldn't expect this to end anytime soon. Just prepare for more war. And so again, when we look at the Strait of Hormuz, we're seeing a little bit of traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz today. So this is different than what I've been seeing over the past a couple months. I've been following this through OSINT analysis and looking at maps on marine traffic. You're seeing a little bit more traffic going through here with these crude oil tankers, these red triangles here. So interesting developments. And then when we really look at Qatar, same kind of movement, and continue our force there. Again, more anchored vessels, or continued anchored vessels in the Persian Gulf, the northern Persian Gulf, the Suez Canal, and then Kuwait is where a lot of U.S. bases are, Bahrain, and again, Qatar, big funder of the United States, by the way, and a lot of media personalities like Tucker Carlson. Qatar, that is a fact. Qatar funds a lot of our media and a lot of United States projects. Qatar actually just gifted Donald Trump a new Air Force One, which is insane, by the way. Why would you trust that? We should have our Air Force One built in America, but that's aside the point. So again, and then near Fujairah, which is just east of the Strait of Hormuz, we still pretty much have the same exact look here when it comes to all of that. So when I see this, it looks pretty clear to me that this entire war is continuing on. Nothing looks too much different, but we're seeing the same amount of traffic really going through the Strait of Hormuz. Not too much traffic at the end of the day. Okay, and then again, these are just some video. This is just video footage of these strikes that are taking place in Bahrain. Or I'm sorry, not in Bahrain. Bandar Abbas. So when we look at this, this is from last night. You're seeing this circulating all over X, pretty much. Some of these videos might be tonight. So again, lots of different footage covering it. Covered it yesterday on the stream, footage of U.S. airstrikes hitting Iran's Bandar Abbas tonight. So this was yesterday that this was posted. So again, we covered that a little bit. But now CENTCOM is saying that they're not giving too much information, obviously, but they're saying that we're probably going to continue those strikes on Iran in the Strait of Hormuz in those areas. So what do I think? I think the MOU is indeed effectively over. I agree with Donald Trump that it's over. But, at the end of the day, I think it was always in the interest of the United States to not really end this war, especially the state of Israel, right? Who this war was really fought for. I think we can all agree on that based on the intelligence, based on everything that's available to us, all the information. So how has this affected the crypto market? We cover crypto every day, try to cover what's really going on, how these events are actually affecting and impacting the markets, right? The Fear and Greed Index is at 27, and Bitcoin's at 62,274, so not much different. The entire market for crypto pretty much looks the same as it has for the past couple months, right? We're all waiting on the Clarity Act. We're going to see if this thing actually gets signed at all and if there's any real potential. When the Clarity Act gets signed, you'll probably see some kind of price movement. You'll probably see trillions of dollars worth of inflow from the banks. Right now, it's really just the banking institutions. We had Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York, even come out. He was a Democrat. Lots of Democrats are against crypto, but hey, Andrew Cuomo just recently came out saying that crypto is a good thing. He had a lot of good things to say about the MiCA agreement in the EU and things that are happening there. And so that is good for the United States. We need the Democrats to be on board with crypto because crypto is good for everybody. It's not just good for retail, for the investors like you and me. It's good for the banks. It's good for these CEOs. This is why Brian Armstrong, all of these CEOs. The only people who are really against this thing are the CEOs like Jamie Dimon, who essentially he's just saying they're going to fight it to the very end. They don't like that this is happening. Again, because it affects them. It does affect the banking institutions. But at the same time, you're just getting faster payments. You're just getting a more updated system of economy. And that is what this emerging market of digital assets really are, if you understand them, right? XRP is going to be a huge mover, right? And same thing with Solana. We've seen Solana move up drastically over the past few months. XRP and Solana are pretty much direct competitors, but I think they'll end up working together on a lot of different fronts. They have a few different functionalities, and I would say XRP is probably even more effective because they've been acquiring even more companies. I think they have a lot more power under their belt, a lot more potentiality behind the company Ripple, who owns the asset XRP. We have Hyperliquid at $67.09. And then Stellar Lumens at 18 cents, another big mover. Again, Cardano, who knows where that's going to sit when it comes to this entire Clarity Act. When it does get passed, it will eventually get passed. It's just a matter of will it happen in 2026. That's what everybody's wondering. Polymarket says the chances are about 60% now, last time I checked. So interesting. I guess we can check now. Where is that standing right now? So that's kind of what I'm curious about. So we'll go to crypto. First thing we should see is something about the Clarity Act. I think it's going to be interesting, though. What do you think about crypto? What do you think about all of this? Do you think that the Clarity Act will pass in 2026? Do you think that there's even a chance of that? Bitcoin price by the end of 2026, 11% of people think it will be $65,000 to $69,000. Yeah, so a lot of people don't think it's going to move too much. What price will Bitcoin hit in 2026? Again, 84% of people said over $65,000. So again, looking for the Clarity Act here. Where is it? Is it even on here anymore? It's got to be down here somewhere. Clarity Act, Clarity Act, Clarity Act. Hopefully I didn't miss it. But again, what do you think about the crypto market and where things are heading? I think it's going to be quite an interesting market. What will the price of XRP be in March? Again, a lot of people are saying over $1.60. That was confirmed. So yeah, I'm not finding the Clarity Act vote here. Anyways, a lot of people are saying that the Clarity Act is likely to pass before 2026 ends now. And it was under 40, or it was under like 50%. It was like 45%. So now I wanted to move on to the big stories here. This is the big controversial story that everybody's talking about. This is the biggest, I would say, second biggest story in the algorithm on X today that dominated the algorithm. It's this debate between Sneako, Nick Fuentes, basically the Muslims, and then America First. And in my opinion, I think America First is the path that everybody should focus on. If you are a true American, if you love this country, if you want to have a constitution still, if you want to have your Bill of Rights, your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, which both protect each other, by the way, your freedom of speech protects your right to own, to keep and bear arms, and then your Second Amendment protects your right to essentially have a free speech, right? So both of these very important amendments of your many amendments, your many Bill of Rights, again, Sharia law would not allow for these things. So this is why there's been this big debate. And so take a listen to this video. If you haven't already seen this, this got 9.6 million views just from this this account called Autistic Clips on X. But 9.6 million views, 9,100 likes on this. So again, I think people are just liking it because it's informational. A lot of people are not happy with this. So again, this is what Sneako had to say about the United States and where he thinks what he really thinks about America. And I think it's just treacherous. I think this is treason, personally. But what do you think?
Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Oh no! Fuck you! This is the Islamic Republic of New Yorkistan. Islam will be in every household. Inshallah, the whole world is Muslim. Welcome to Mamdani's New York.
Welcome to Mamdani's New York. So could that not be any more in your face? Could that not be any more in your face on what they really want to do?
You see this city? You see how it looks? Inshallah, your city looks just like this too.
So basically, he wants to turn America into a Muslim country. Now, I'm totally against this because, again, the Muslims believe in Sharia law. The Muslims, you see what's happening in the UK. 500,000 young girls were raped. That was in the parliamentary hearings. Okay, that was already revealed. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is factual. Pakistani rape gangs, Muslim rape gangs, all of these things are real. And again, you have these people wielding around knives and swords. They're attacking police. They're taking over. And this is what it looks like. And then Sneako comes back and says, oh, no, that's not what we want to do. What are you talking about? That's just a leftist talking point. What about the Jews? What about Israel bombing Gaza and all of these things? Yeah, well, here's the issue. Okay, here's the issue, Sneako. Maybe you just don't understand your own religion. Again, from my knowledge, you were born a Catholic. And again, by the way, I used to support Sneako, and I supported the Free Palestine movement totally, completely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's horrible and terrible what's happening to the people of Gaza. That's absolutely true, and we should all condemn that. That's absolutely evil. But then they overstep their boundaries. They come to the United States. They start, again, bringing their customs from their country into our country, and because that is a part of their religion. Part of the Muslim religion is to take Islam wherever you go and to bring that wherever you go. So again, let's watch this one more time.
Takbir!
This is what it looks like.
Allahu Akbar!
Allahu Akbar. So again, I mean, this is, again, I know Allahu Akbar just means praise be to God, glory to God. I understand that. But the thing is, we hear that from we've heard that from a lot of terrorists who have killed U.S. soldiers. And that same sentence is triggering to Americans because, again, some of us lost our family members in the Iraq war. And again, you can argue, well, we shouldn't have been there anyways. That was a deep state war. We shouldn't have been there. Doesn't matter. These are really our enemies today. We're fighting the Iranians. And so we have this regime change happening here in America, that it's this attempted regime change. And I think it's terrible. I think we need a crusades, personally, because when you have people like, you have people like Sneako here, and he's not even really an American, truly. I mean, this is not an American. This is somebody who should be deported to the country of which he wants to live in. And again, listen to this.
Oh, no! Fuck you! This is the Islamic Republic of New Yorkistan.
The Islamic Republic of New Yorkistan. The Islamic Republic of New Yorkistan. So when enough of them come into your city, they get cocky, they get arrogant, they bring in this kind of attitude, this conquest kind of attitude, and the white people in America, the white, indigenous, like European Americans here, we're just like, wait, what? We were the ones like saying free Palestine. We gave you all of these rights, though. We gave you all of this freedom. Why do you want to change our country? You want to not have freedom? You want to not have, again, freedom of speech or any of these things? You don't get that in Sharia law. And so I don't know what Sneako is trying to do, but I find it to be, honestly, quite horrible.
Islam will be in every household. Inshallah, the whole world is Muslim. Welcome to Mamdani's New York. You see this city? You see how it looks? Inshallah, your city looks just like this too.
So again, that's just confirmation that Sneako wants to change America into something that it's not, right? In my opinion, America is a Christian country. I grew up in a Christian town. I grew up with people who believed in Christianity. They believed in having a Christian country. I grew up playing baseball, football. I mean, honestly, it was the American dream, right? My whole life. And I'm 27 years old today. And when I look at the state of the country today, it's almost like I am a foreigner in my own country. And then you have people like Sneako saying, well, America's terrible, America's horrible, this isn't how America should be. It's like, well, maybe it's not the white people's fault. Maybe it's not white Europe and, you know, the white indigenous European Americans here. Maybe it's not our fault that things are like this when we are the ones who gave you all of these rights. We gave you access to our country because your country was at war with Israel, getting dominated, by the way. And so we were the ones saying free Palestine. We were the ones saying free the Muslims, free the Muslims. And now we are being taken over by these people. I don't think so. I think that's actually quite treacherous. I think that, you know, this is what you get before these people will start praying in front of Catholic churches and Christian churches, and they'll start pushing people out, Christians out of their churches. They will bring in a religion that is, you know, foreign to our own, alien to our own. And their religion, the problem with it, as much as the United States Constitution and the freedom of speech believes in having a freedom of religion, yes, absolutely. But the problem is Sharia law and that religion does not allow for the same things. So if we were to have a Muslim president, well, guess what? Part of Sharia law would be to essentially inoculate and take out anybody else who was not, was not willing to convert to Islam. So Christians would basically be punished. They'd get their heads cut off. These things happen. Okay, whether Sneako agrees with that or not, these things absolutely are happening all over. And you see it in the United Kingdom. You see it in Ireland. You see it in Scotland. You see it in France. I see the videos every single day. And you could say, well, that's just propaganda by Elon Musk. Well, so it's all just an act? When I see hundreds and hundreds of Muslims praying in front of the Roman Colosseum, that's just an act? I think that's kind of crazy. And I think that that's not okay. You know, it's disrespectful. And it's, you know, that is not how you should celebrate America, by waving the flag of a different country of which you came from and of which you are proud of. Great. But just make sure the American flag is above that flag. You know, you want to have two flags in your front yard, that's great. Go ahead. But make sure the American flag is on top. You know, and if it's not, then you should self-deport. You should not be living in our country because you don't appreciate our Constitution and the freedom that our country gave you from, again, war and everything that the Israelis are doing to the people of Gaza and Palestine and Lebanon today. Yeah, it's America. We're the reason that you get to, like, live here. Okay, and you could say, well, the Americans are the reason we're at this war. No, the American politicians are the reason we're at this war, and we can argue that together. But to say that our country needs to change into something it's not, and to become this false religion, in my opinion, I think it's completely a false religion. I think it's insane. Muhammad was a pedophile. That's true. Okay, the Muslim religion calls for anybody who does not believe in Sharia law to be essentially to have jihad inflicted upon them. Okay, this is in the Quran. And Sneako would say, well, that's not true. Yes, it is. Read your Quran, Sneako. I've read the Quran, and I found a lot of inconsistencies with it. The Muslims believe, although the Muslims and the Christians do have a lot in common, the Muslims do believe that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. I love that. The Muslims have a lot more similarities with the Christians than the people of the Jewish religion do. And that's just a fact, right? If you are Jewish, you believe that Jesus Christ was a false idol. You believe that he was not the Messiah or the Son of God. And you believe that he was not even a prophet. And you almost believe that he deserved to die for his beliefs. So, you know, the Muslims do have more in common with Christians, but the problem is Muslims don't treat Christians that way. You know, Muslims enslave Christians. Right now, the leading sex trafficking operations are usually run by Muslims all over the world, all over the planet. And you could argue that's the United States or Britain. listen, at the end of the day, it seems like it's 500,000 Pakistani, or it's 500,000 young white women being raped in Europe, in the UK, and it's not, I don't see Muslim children being raped. I don't see that happening. Seems like the parliamentary is investigating 500,000 white European young girls being raped by Pakistani gangs, right? Tripolia and all these different locations, all over the world. It's not Istanbul. You look at all these different places, and these are terrorist locations that are absolutely trafficking, high level human trafficking zones. So yeah, we got a lot of problem with the Muslim religion. The Christians just aren't doing that. We're not. Maybe you could argue that the Christian Zionists are doing that. But I wouldn't argue that the Catholics and, Crusader type Christians like myself, I would consider myself a Crusader Christian. I would consider myself more of an Orthodox Christian. I don't consider myself to be the problem with the problems we have in America. Maybe the problem with America is that we've allowed too many immigrants into our country who have a completely conflicting ideology than ours. So that's kind of my take on that. So again, let's watch some more clips. When I look at this, so that's what Sneako originally had to say about bringing Islam into every household, saying that, America needs to become a Muslim country, all these crazy things, all these crazy ideas that I completely and totally disagree with. Okay, so hold on, got to take a minute away for 1 second. Got to fix this. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, I just had to fix that for a moment. Ended up losing my spot here. Got a lot of tabs open, so hopefully all of these will open. One of them just didn't open, so that's going to be... Again, I have a lot of these saved, but this is what Alex Jones, or really Nick Fuentes, had to say on the matter. Nick Fuentes tells Alex Jones what Sneako is driven by with anti-white hate. It's all motivated fundamentally by anti-Americanism. And it's really something like a race war. So I totally agree with this clip. It's about 5 minutes.
Well, and what's interesting about it is I actually saw Sneako do a stream a little bit later with the brother of Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit. And the brother is from Sudan, and he was born a Muslim. He's a lifelong Muslim. Sneako's a convert. Sneako was born Catholic, born in America. He's not Arab. He's not from the Muslim world. He became Muslim. And he sat down, he talked with Ryad, who's brother of Myron Gaines. And Ryad was talking to Sneako about this big public prayer they did in Times Square. And Ryad, who's actually born a Muslim, like I said, from Sudan, from a Muslim country, speaks Arabic. He said, actually, that's not a good Muslim practice. He said, because for all and they recognize America as emblematic of
anybody who's not Muslim should either convert, pay the tax, or they be disciplined and punished harshly. And again, that's soft language. In the modern Quran, the old Quran believed that they should be killed and have jihad inflicted upon them. That is a fact.
Say this is the big white Christian empire. Well, to them. What it's about is really something like race. For all this talk about rejecting the idolatry of skin color, the idolatry of one's race, these material things, why did Sneako become Muslim? Why does he wear the black suits? He's trying to emulate Malcolm X because he thought Christianity was too white. He doesn't feel he wants to be like. He's not desperate to be like. And when you describe about, we're gonna end all races, we're gonna end all genocide, we're gonna make a whole world Muslim.
Hold on, sir. 1 second. Gotta fix this again. 1 second. Losing too many frames. Try to change this bitrate a little bit. Unbelievable. So annoying. Need new stuff. Need new tech. 1 second. See if that works.
Mamdani, who Sneako's a big supporter of in New York. Mamdani is a Muslim, but Mamdani also has drag queens in the city council doing their voguing, doing their dance for Gay Pride Month. And you'll have these DSA candidates backed by a Muslim, and they support queer liberation and feminism and the rest of it. And you say, how do you reconcile all these things? That's effectively what they have in common. So that's the unholy alliance. And the problem is, like you talked about earlier, that's putting us in this dialectical position where it feels like we're going to be left-wing Muslim. And I feel like people like you and I are stuck in the middle saying, I'm America first. I'm right wing. I'm Christian. I think America has this white identity, and I want to put America first. And I don't necessarily want to
this is just not playing so well. So again, we've been lagging this whole time, losing a bunch of frames because I have so many tabs open, and I don't have a lot of storage on this laptop. It's kind of annoying. Kind of annoying. So hold on. Fix this once again. Unbelievable. So annoying. So hold on here. One more time. Let's see if this works. Gotta love Fuentes was talking about here is that the left is really using this pro Islamic movement to subvert the right. And everything that we're seeing with this happen is essentially designed to get people away from Israel, but to get people on this leftist train, and this leftist train that is going to essentially allow for a lot of these Mamdanis, who are the governor of New York or the mayor of New York, to basically take over. And so not good at all. So we need to be careful about a lot of that. So again, that was one clip from Nick Fuentes. We missed most of it, but again, don't have a lot of time to keep playing it here. So again, let's see if this works. Fuentes. Man, this is giving me problems. I really need new tech. Unbelievable. Hold on. Gotta fix this again. Gotta love this. Gotta love technology. It's just amazing how nothing ever works. All right, we're back again. I don't know. Let's see if this works. I'll keep trying to play some of these. We're just like lagging and losing a ton of frames. And it's not really the internet. It's more, I just have a really shitty laptop with not a lot of storage.
They're all making these movies, how there's all these secret underground white supremacists in one battle after another.
Right,
that isn't out there. This isn't underground white supremacists. This is underground pro-Western, pro-freedom individuals. Some will choose to be vocal. Some will choose to be tip of the spear, like Nick, which is a very dangerous thing. And others will just burrow in. And that's what you're saying. Go ahead.
Well, exactly right. And I'm speaking specifically to the elite human capital. I'm speaking to the best and brightest, the people with the most talent, the most capabilities. I really believe those are the people actually that are going to change the world. A lot of people, you know, when they think about like, and maybe this is not like the most optimistic or universal message for everybody, but people think about in terms of how we're going to save the country, they think about an election. They think about, well, who can we elect for president? Who's going to get 50% of all the votes? And I think we don't need to win necessarily 50% of the people to our ideology. We don't need to target a massive group of people, all ages, all sexes, all races. What I'm focused on is the young men. Pause. I'm focused on the best and brightest young men because those are the people actually that are the ones that end up changing the world. It's not young. Sad to say the boomers, who in many cases are set in their ways, and you know they already have their beliefs. They're basically crystallized. You know their brain doesn't really develop the same way. It's not even some of the older people have their same attitudes and they're in like a stable situation. They got a wife and kids. They can't do much. When you look at the founding fathers, they were all people in their teens, 20-somethings, early 30s. These were all adventurous, brilliant, young men that had the willingness and the ability basically to put it all on the line for their ideals. They were idealists. And so that's really who I'm focused on. And I think that's why they consider me maybe disproportionately to be a bigger threat. Even though I'm not necessarily the most mainstream figure or have necessarily the biggest audience, the audience that I do reach are those brilliant young men in the most elite universities, the ones that are really going to go the distance and be those decision makers, tastemakers, influencers. They're going to, yeah, go ahead.
I want to explain how dead on you are and how you.
So again, that was just one clip from Nick Fuentes. Again, we had some other good clips here, but of course they just had to not work while I was trying to play it. It's like Mossad is listening. But honestly, we're just playing a few different clips from Fuentes and the Alex Jones debate with Sneako next. But I'm really just encapsulating what Nick was talking about in his response to Sneako and all of this, and kind of how I think a lot of Americans are feeling when it comes to this.
Can I just be honest for a second? The switch up on the third world feels so good. It feels so good to switch up on the third world because this arc that we were on, where it was like free Palestine and all eyes on Rafah, raise up your sticks for Yahya Sinwar. That was really gay. That was just like the gayest bullshit. And we sort of tolerated it.
It kind of was, because it wasn't even pro-America.
About Israel.
Now, again, we all sympathize, again, with, you know, what's happening in Gaza, obviously, in Palestine. The issue with it is like a lot of these Muslims had, again, overstepped their boundaries. So, you know, this is what a lot of Americans are saying here. It's like these Muslims, we gave these Muslims all their freedom. We allowed them into our country during a time of war while they're getting essentially genocided by the Israelis. But what do they do and how do they respond? Well, they pray in front of our churches. And, you know, you have 500,000 young white English women who are being raped by Pakistani gangs. And then you see the videos on X. Just type it in. Muslim gangs. You know, Muslims UK, and you're getting the same kind of behaviors. And you're seeing them wielding around knives and swords and attacking the cops. And it's just like you're seeing this everywhere. And this isn't just like some fake conversation. And so white people are getting tired of it. White European, indigenous Americans, you could say. And so same thing with white, indigenous Europeans. And again, Rupert Lowe had used that terminology just recently on the Joe Rogan podcast. So, you know, if you're going to live in America or a European country, you need to respect the American culture and American life. And that's what really Nick's saying. And I think that's why a lot of Americans believe the same thing.
It was red pilling your lib shit, liberal friends, that Israel controls the country. It was obviously moving the ball down the field. But that whole third world arc we were on where we had to tolerate the endless bitching and crying, about colonialism and genocide. Raise up your sticks for Yahya Sinwar. That sucked so hard, and I'm so glad we finally got to switch up on him and say, you know what? You gotta go too.
America first.
If the Zionists, if Randy Fine...
America first. And if you can't choose America first, if you don't love Jesus Christ, or if you can't at least assimilate and be okay with America being a Christian country, then you can go home. You're not home, then you can go home, right? But if you are willing to raise the American flag, and if you love this country and our culture, our way of life, if you want to fall into our way of life, like the Irish did, like the Italians did, like the Germans did, like the Scottish did, if you fall into our way of life and our way of doing things here, and you admire our country, you love our country and everything it stands for, your ability, like all of these Muslims who are burning the American flag, just remember that it's America that gives you the right to burn an American flag. It's America that gives you the right to do these things and act this way. And so maybe not, burn the flag, which gives you the same right to burn a flag of which you are living in which any other country you would be killed for that. And so seriously, it's like, if you don't love America, then you can get out. And so that's what Nick is really saying here.
Laura Loomer are going back. You're fucking going back too. Hassan Piker, Zoran Mamdani, Sneako, Mehdi Hassan, you're all going back. We need all of you to get the fuck out of America and Europe, and it feels so good. And they go, wait a minute, you can't just switch up. You can't just switch up. What about this? What about that? Oh, are you telling me that we cynically took advantage of the situation to press our own issue? Yeah, absolutely we did. It's called taking your own side. It's called taking your own side. We're always raising up the banner for Christ. We're always raising up the banner for Europe, for America, for Western civilization. Don't kid yourself. They said, what about our Muslim-Christian alliance? We switched up. It's called we switched up. We don't want you in our country.
There really was no Muslim-Christian alliance because the Christians had tried to unite with the Muslims. And I seen that. And I had tried to, I liked the idea of the Muslims and the Christians uniting against the Israeli occupation happening in America and the Israeli genocide happening in, again, Gaza and Palestine, which, again, Grok or ChatGPT might disagree. But again, those things are happening. And I was one of those people, Free Palestine. I was a big fan of Sneako's. But as soon as he switched up on America, we switched up on you, Muslims. And as soon as Muslims switched up on America, you start trying to take over our country. It's like, no, don't get us wrong. Don't overstep your boundaries. You're here in America. Don't forget who gave you the freedom you have.
Countries. What about the alliance? I thought we had something special. No, I'm sorry, Mohammed. I'm sorry, Mohammed Hijab, Mohammed Bismillah, whatever the fuck. No, we switched up. We take our own side now. You think we're going to be suckers for third worldists and leftists forever? Not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's true, So again, Alex Jones ended up going on Sneako, and he had a lot of these same conversations. And, of course, another video I can't watch. This is really getting old. It's really getting old. Just love that. Love that. Can't open that tab. Can't open that tab. Can't open this tab. That's amazing. Isn't that just great? This is just getting so old. Have this whole show lined up, and because my laptop sucks, we can't cover all of these awesome videos. So again, have to take a All right, so I'm back. Yeah, like I said, I kind of have to upgrade my tech here a lot. We're using like a M2 Apple Mac, so You know, we has like 8 gigabyte. We have like 8 gigabytes of RAM on this device, so it's not really too easy to get the best kind of content. But we're going to move on from that subject, and we're going to talk more about Charlie Kirk now. I wanted to focus more on what's going on. The big conversation on X today, outside of the big Sneako and Nick Fuentes debate, is the Charlie Kirk mystery, the Charlie Kirk assassination. Nick Fuentes believes that Tyler Robinson was the shooter. I don't believe that. You know, I think a lot of the biggest names in the media are saying that Tyler Robinson was not the killer, or was the killer, because, again, these bigger names in the media, they have a lot to lose. And maybe they've even gotten the call, as we've been hearing that phrase a lot from the Israelis, right? And so I think there's a lot more. I think it'll be up to the American people to find the truth. And so we're going to watch this 14-minute video from Ben Swan, and he breaks down a lot of different inconsistencies with this entire case over the past 2 days of this entire trial that we've been seeing. So again, without further ado, let's take a look at this, make sure we're all good here. And honestly, again, that's kind of my position on it. Where do you think, what do you think happened with the Charlie Kirk assassination? What do you think is the truth? I think we're being told a lot of different lies, and we need to be very careful. So let's see.
The man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk. That case has finally reached a courtroom, and already we are learning so many things that make you question everything that you've been told. The Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing is already raising major red flags in the official narrative. Tyler Robinson arrived again today in an armored vehicle with a heavily armed SWAT team on site. Today's hearing wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It's about what evidence will be allowed in court in order for the case to move forward, right? So basically the judge says he hears all the evidence that's presented. He decides this is admissible, this is not. And what happened inside the courtroom caught a lot of people's attention. That courtroom was packed, the expectations were high, and the judge rejected what cases
when I was laying down a sniper, being around.
We literally forgot to toggle all of these on or something. Why aren't we streaming on Rumble? So many problems today. Of course, we had this great stream lined up. We have all these problems. Yeah, never clicked start stream. This whole time, we've lost all these viewers. That's awesome. That's just great. Why isn't this working? That's just awesome. Fail today, man. Fail. We have tried to connect to all these streams. None of these are working. Hold on. Annoying. Don't know why that is. I guess, whatever. I guess we'll go back. Well, we're on YouTube, so go on YouTube if you're... Damn, I don't know why that didn't work. We'll download this to Rumble and all the other platforms. Not sure. Why that didn't work.
Was looking for a
Let's go back to
shell
what we were
casing. I
doing.
couldn't see one. I was looking over the edge, looking all over the place, making sure the gravel wasn't disturbed, and I couldn't find a shell casing at that moment.
Did you pick up on that? No shell casings, no live rounds, nothing. The roof where Tyler Robinson allegedly shot Charlie Kirk from has no evidence of a rifle being fired, which is even more bizarre when we remember that we were told that both the fired and unfired bullet casings were found in a nearby wooded area with engraved messages on them that Tyler Robinson had engraved into them. Then the defense raised another issue.
Are you aware of there being a bullet found on another roof?
I'm not aware.
Vicinity? Were you aware of another?
Favorite thing when nothing works, when you're live. It's amazing. Oh, that's great. What's the problem? What's the problem? Always an issue. It's like somebody's watching me and they're making sure that I can't stream any of these videos. Annoying. Welp, I might just end this stream because we literally can't play any videos and everything's just giving me so many technical problems. Considering ending this stream. Let's see if this works if I refresh this page. Let's see. 2 minutes, 46 seconds in. Bear with me. Gotta love it. Amazing. It's the best. Ultimately, that's my opinion, though, on the matter. I think that Charlie Kirk's assassination, it's obvious who was really behind it. And I think when we look at all of the inconsistencies, it seems to me very clear that Israel was obviously behind it. Yeah, and we're not going to be able to open this now. I'm going to end the stream. We're going to talk about a lot of this tomorrow. This is just not working out today. Not working out. I need new tech, pretty much. Yeah, need new technology, and this is what you run into when you're live streaming. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work out the way you wanted. Had a great stream lined up, and, you know, had all these videos lined up, but it just didn't work out too well. So honestly, my take on it, just since we can't play these videos, my honest take is that, again, I do believe Israel was behind the Charlie Kirk assassination when we look at all the inconsistencies, when we look at the fact that, again, Charlie Kirk was coming against the Israel lobby at the end of his life. 3 days before he was killed, he had turned down $150 million. The thing that also had was on bail. Going later, we'll come back all of this. So we'll see you next time.